From the land of conjures, flying through the internet to your device like a UAP, hauntingly unexplained and downright weird. This is the witching hours, and we are ready to take off in the flash of an eye. Good evening to one and all, wherever or whenever you are listening to this program. I am John the Frost, and joining me, as always, is the medium Jenny Lee. Jenny, you want to get weird?
Absolutely.
All
Weirder
right,
the
well, let's
better.
get started. Welcome in, everybody, on this Thursday. It is December the 12th, 2024. December the 12th. We have a little bit of time left in
12/12.
2024. Yeah, it's 12/12.
12/12, which if you add together is 24, which is the year.
There we go. Okay, so there we go. 12,
Somebody
12,
wants to do the
24.
numerology on that, go for it.
Welcome our guest, the numbers lady. No, I'm just
Numbers.
kidding.
I was looking up Chinese numerology today for my new job.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was hard to find, but I'm getting it.
We're halfway. I mean, we're almost halfway through the month already. We're almost halfway through December already.
Yikes.
And only really a few weeks left here in 2024. We'll be headed into 2025.
Mm.
So I know we've talked about this a lot, but for everyone, for all you in chat tonight and everyone listening, we do have our prediction show coming up on January the 2nd. Will be our first show of 2025, and we can make all kinds of predictions about the new year and go over everyone's predictions for 2024 and see how they panned out.
It's going to be exciting.
Welcome in, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really do, I think, have a very interesting show tonight. And for all you tarot lovers, I think we're going to have a really good conversation.
Pretty much all of you.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how we got started, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be a very interesting show. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm excited to talk to our guest tonight. But I guess, well, is there anything that we need to talk about? We got news coming up for the Teamwear Takeover, so we'll probably be talking about that as we head into once we get through the little break here, and then we'll start getting ready for that. If you're listening to us over on a podcast platform, if it's iHeartRadio or Spotify or iTunes or whatever it is, Apple Podcasts, make sure you give us a checky mark over there, or a click, or 5 stars, or whatever it is if you enjoy the program, so that other people can also find it. If you're listening to us on YouTube, give us a like and a subscribe, and feel free to leave us a comment down below, and we would appreciate it. All right, you ready to get into the news, Jenny?
Yes, sir.
All right, I got some interesting ones tonight. We'll see if you give it the thumbs up or the thumb down. Number one tonight is a sarcophagus of the real Santa Claus found at St. Nicholas Church in Turkey.
Okay.
So,
sarcophagus of Turkey, that makes sense. Okay, got it.
We had a conversation about this on with Rissa Miller last week, and so we were talking about the bones about St. Nicholas. Recent excavations at the Church of St. Nicholas in Demre, Antalya, Turkey, have revealed a limestone sarcophagus that may be the burial site of St. Nicholas, a Greek bishop whose life and deeds inspired the legend of Santa Claus. The discovery is part of the ongoing legacy for the future project led by Associate Professor Ebru Fatma Findik from Hatay Mustafa Kemal University, and initiated by Turkey's Ministry of Culture and Tourism. And I apologize if I butchered any of that. The sarcophagus found within the church's 2-story annex is believed to be the original burial site of St. Nicholas, who lived in the ancient city of Myra during the 4th century CE. Measuring approximately, which is common error, so that would be AD for those who aren't used to that. Measuring approximately 2 meters in length and buried at a depth of 1.5 to 2 meters, the sarcophagus features a raised lid and a pitched roof consistent with burial styles of the region. So its proximity to the church, it was constructed in the 5th century CE by order of the Byzantine Emperor Theodosius II. It's going to add credibility to the story here. So they're saying their biggest hope is to find an inscription on the sarcophagus. And this would help clarify the burial contents and allow them to determine the exact period that it dates from. So they're hoping they found the sarcophagus of St. Nicholas, but they're not sure yet. They've been working on this for a while.
Did they open it?
Not that I know of yet. St. Nicholas kind of goes into the story here on St. Nicholas. We just talked about that, about kind of his the deeds of St. Nicholas.
Because
Um,
Rissa was talking about how um, supposedly they already had all the bones of St. Nicholas and they've been spread around.
well, if you know much about the Catholic Church,
I know there's a
they
lot of
have
bones
lots
out
of
there,
bones that they
and
say
they're
that
all
are things
relics
that
of
are things.
so and so's bones and Saint whoever's bones and whatever bones.
And it's
Who
like a
knows what
chicken
actual
bone
yeah,
from
who knows
500
what
years ago.
actual bones they are.
The
But yeah.
current excavation has been underway since 1989,
Oh, wow.
with this latest phase
That took a
beginning
long
to
time to dig up. It
well,
must've been really far down there.
it's been a huge well, they're digging up a whole ancient church.
Yeah, I know, just messing.
So, with this latest phase beginning 2 years ago, researchers have unearthed not only the sarcophagus, but also fragments of clay lamps and animal bones, indicating the area was historically used as a burial site. The fact that we have found a sarcophagus near the church, thought to house his tomb, may indicate that this is indeed the sacred area we've been searching for, said Dr. Findick. So,
That's cool.
yeah, St. Nicholas, maybe. So, if I hear anything else or if you see any other news, pass it along and we'll try to keep up with that one. Story number 2, visiting a haunted house could be good for your health, a new study claims. So,
Yeah, that
fear
depends.
is one of the most primal of emotions. It protects us from harm by stopping us from doing things or entering situations that may be dangerous. Some people, however, like to actively seek out and experience fear whenever possible. Now,
Mhm.
according to a new study by scientists in Denmark, fear can actually have a surprisingly beneficial impact on our mental well being. For the study, researchers monitored inflammation levels in the blood of volunteers before and after they visit a haunted house.
Mm.
One of those theme park experiences filled with monsters, zombies, ghosts, and other nasties that jump out to frighten visitors. Surprisingly, the results showed that the inflammation levels had dropped after visiting the attraction.
Oh.
Like many activities that kind of that get the blood going, getting a good scare can result in a boost of adrenaline and a surge of endorphins that scientists now believe may be beneficial to one's health.
Hmm.
So there we go.
Boo.
Yeah. While anxiety
Love
appears linked to
scares.
low-grade chronic inflammation, fear may be associated with peak and subsequent resolution of inflammation. Future research can explore the adrenergic system's role and confirm the persistence of these effects. So,
Ooh, that sentence was difficult.
I don't know, man. I tell you, these things. But yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, I think everybody kind of knew that, like, there, I don't know, that that it does release certain things that can, make you excited and kinda
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but actually to see, like, lower levels of inflammation and stuff like that is
Hmm.
interesting. And it
Yeah.
also wonder too
Who
because
needs ibuprofen? Just get a jump scare.
we talked about, we were talking last week about kind of the ancient, I guess the reality for ancient humans, was a lot different than it is for
Yeah.
us now,
Oh,
like
yeah.
having to live through the winter. We were talking about, surviving the winter.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so I wonder, we don't maybe get the scares that we would have got living in the dark, being,
Yeah. Worried about
worried about
bears
eaten
and
by a
wolves and
bear or
stuff,
whatever.
yeah. Mhm.
So,
Tigers or whatever. Yeah.
maybe that's like part of something that we need that we don't receive on a regular basis like we would have for evolution purposes. I don't know. That's
Maybe.
interesting. Story number 3, pastor to prove flat earth believers wrong with expedition to Antarctica. So, for a while now, the freezing southern continent of Antarctica has been at the center of the debate for the flat earth because proponents of
Mhm.
the idea say that the earth is flat, believe that there is a giant wall of ice that
Winter is
encircles
coming.
the flat our earth there. So it marks the edge of the world. They also maintain
Send
that
them to the wall.
the day and night cycle is the same in our Antarctica as it is away from the poles,
Yo, no, nothing,
even
Jon
though
Snow.
Antarctica sees periods of several months of darkness and several months of daylight. The difficulties inherent in accessing Antarctica to check this for themselves is evidence of the world's governments covering up the truth about the Earth's flat nature. Now, one man has taken it upon himself to settle this issue once and for all. Colorado pastor Will Duffy is conducting what he calls the final experiment by flying a group of 8 people to Antarctica, 4 who believe that the Earth is flat and 4 who don't, to
Okay.
demonstrate firsthand that there is no wall and that day and night do not cycle every 24 hours like they do almost everywhere else. He says, I created the final experiment to end this debate once and for all. And after we go to Antarctica, no one has to waste any more time debating the shape of the Earth.
However, it's only going to prove it to the 8
Yeah.
people, 9 people that are on the plane.
The flight is currently scheduled to take place on December 14th. So just a couple days, just Saturday, I guess.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, Saturday. So, well, I don't, you know what? I
Good
think it's a
luck.
good
Good luck,
idea.
fella.
I think it's a good idea. I think what I would have done is I would have gotten one of the big flat earth YouTubers.
Yeah.
Like someone who's just put out a ton of content, who has like
Mhm.
million, subscribers or whatever,
Yeah.
and invited them, no cost. Like, hey, let's go video it. Let's put it on YouTube. Let's bring, a non-fisheye lens camera. Bring your phone
Yeah.
and let's do this. And then put the information out on YouTube once it
Yeah.
was done. Because, like you said, I mean, if they don't do that, then it's still going to be somebody else's word versus somebody
It's
else's word.
exactly.
But
And
maybe they will do that.
nobody
Maybe they
believes
will.
anything on the internet anymore, so,
Yeah. Maybe they will record it and put it on YouTube. I don't know. We'll see.
maybe.
Number 4, New Jersey senator calls for a limited state of emergency as drone mystery deepens. A New Jersey state senator called for a limited state of emergency Tuesday as the mystery surrounding large drones flying over the Garden State, New Jersey, continues to deepen. The
Hmm.
state of New Jersey should issue a limited state of emergency banning all drones until the public receives an explanation regarding these multiple sightings.
What kind of
Republican New
drones?
Jersey State Senator John Bromnick said in a press release. Reports of large drones flying over President-elect Trump's Bedminster golf course and near military research sites in New Jersey have been on the rise in recent weeks.
Hmm.
On Monday, Governor Phil Murphy announced that there were dozens of reports of drones on Sunday alone. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said Tuesday that drones flying over New Jersey were not foreign.
Okay.
Adding that President Biden has been made aware of the situation and the Department of Homeland Security and FBI were investigating.
Okay.
So we are certainly aware, the president is aware, so we are closely tracking the activity and coordinating closely with relevant agencies, including the Department of Homeland Security and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, to continue to investigate these incidents, Pierre said before adding she did not have anything else to share. When pressed if
So
the federal government had ruled out that drones are being controlled by foreign entities, they said, yeah, they had ruled it out.
so
The
they're
federal Go ahead.
they know for sure that they're a drone. Like, it's very
No,
clear it's a drone.
no,
Or are they just
it's not.
saying it's a drone and actually it
It's
might be something unknown?
it's the new word evidently this week for UFOs.
Because a drone is, like, very obviously a drone, right? I mean, like, it's a drone. They usually make a lot of noise. They sound like a swarm of bees. And, it's like, unless you got some military grade one, I guess, that's silent. But
Yeah. From the pictures I've seen,
they're not drones.
they look like UFO sightings. I mean, I'm not saying that they couldn't be drones.
So the news is just calling them drones.
Yeah, I guess
And what
that's
are
what
they
we're doing
looking
now.
for? Trump?
I don't know. Well, it's military bases and all kinds of things. So
Is he golfing in New Jersey? What's going on?
The Federal Aviation Administration first received reports of drone activity November 18th in Morris County, which is nearly 2 miles north of Trump National Golf Club. And since then, sightings have occurred a few miles north of Bedminster and Mendham and Parsippany and other places across the Garden State. On Monday, Murphy said there were 49 reports of drones just Sunday, mostly in Hunterdon County. And the Democratic governor said his numbers also included possible sightings and potentially the same drone being reported more than once. So, yeah,
Okay.
it's interesting.
Shadow Max has some more information. 50 came on shore at one time. It's going after a specific arsenal, which is the largest weapons depot on the East Coast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh,
Um, I don't know,
interesting.
but so here's the question.
Mhm.
If it's not foreign, I mean, are we saying that these drones are our own drones that were flying over our own military installations and Trump's
Or
watch
are they,
list?
like,
Or
people's private drones that they built or something? I mean, I don't
I don't know.
know.
It's it's very interesting because there's been a lot of UFO, UAP stuff going on. The
Yeah.
sphere that landed at the airport. Did you see that one,
Yeah.
Jenny?
Mhm.
The levitating sphere.
Yes. CMC has found some really great ones recently,
Yeah.
and my guess is they're all us.
Your guess is that they're all us.
Yep.
Disinformation,
Yep.
disinformation. So that they can be like, oh, here's all this UFO stuff, and then what? And then prove that it's fake because it was actually some private drones. So
I
now,
don't know.
like, so now all the Tic Tac stuff and the lights over Phoenix and all that, we're just, we can just throw that out the window too. That's I don't know.
I think a lot of the recent stuff is us.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's
That's
interesting.
my gut feeling about it. But anyway, tell us
All
about our
right,
guest for
that
tonight.
was the news. All right. Jason Cosmos is originally from Australia and had a very impactful career. His career in tarot reading by a professional reader in Melbourne in 1994. This reading stayed with him as he changed his life and launched into a new career in military intelligence. In 1997, he bought his first deck in Santa Barbara, California, and he continued with tarot for 11 years, taking courses, doing readings for friends, and briefly and professionally. Jason has taken courses with Mary Kay Greer and achieved professional membership with the Tarot Guild of Australia in 2005. He was an endorsed reader with the Tarot Association of the British Isles. Then, after 2008, John did hardly any readings. In early 2022, he picked up tarot again with gusto, completed the Biddy Tarot Advisor Program, and went to the Omega Institute for a week long tarot intensive with Mary Kay Greer and Jenna Matlin. He also has taken courses with Marcus Katz and Letitia Barbier. I'll have to get pronunciation on that for sure. He currently runs the Tarot Association of British Isles monthly practice reading as an official reviewer of tarot decks and books. And he is a member of the Capital Tarot Society. He has completed hundreds of readings for clients online and began doing in person readings this year. Jason feels that tarot is the key to unlocking a component of life and helping answer the questions: what are we? Why are we? And does tarot help us understand it all? Jason is retired and does cat rescue volunteer work with a local nonprofit around the greater DC region where he lives with his wife, Jane. Please welcome to the show, Jason Cosmos. Welcome, Jason.
Hi, very much. Thank you very much, Frosty and Jenny.
Yes,
Well,
welcome
it's
in.
it's great to have you on the show. We talked for a moment before we got started today, and I told you we got a pretty good tarot community here. We have a lot of knowledgeable people about tarot, but I think also people who have a lot of questions and people who, well, we're always in different stages.
Yeah,
Some people are beginners and some people are very experienced. So I have a feeling that we're going to have a really good conversation tonight. The I guess we'll start you off with the first question that I usually kind of have when we talk to practitioners and tarot and mediums and stuff like that, which is, how in the heck did you get started? Like, what was the path that kind of led you into getting involved in this?
Yeah, there's a that's a really good question. There's the long and the short. The short one you just revealed that I was in Santa Barbara and I was doing I was in the Australian military, but we have an American base in Australia that does missile early warning (ICBM), and so I was in Vandenberg Air Force Base learning how to do that, and I was doing rather poorly on the course, and because I'd had this really great reading a few years before, and I was there alone, and I needed some type of guidance or counselling or mentoring, and so I I remembered the tarot, and I went to Borders, I think, in Santa Barbara, which is just south of Vandenberg, and bought bought, bought that deck and went back to my room, and I've still got a recording of like I wrote down I did a Celtic cross, one with all majors, and then a proper one, and then anyway, I passed the course.
Oh,
Oh, wonderful.
so you felt like
Yeah,
doing the tarot reading helped guide you through the
oh,
rest of that course.
yeah, absolutely. It gave me objectivity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but
what was that? What was that first deck that you bought?
it was Universal right away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the one.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, the US Games recolored version.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was recommended to me by the guy at Borders. So
Yeah, that's usually what a lot of people start with, but not everybody. I did not
Yeah.
start with the Rider Waite. That one came to me later. But so okay. Were you interested in any spiritual woo-woo things before you had your first tarot reading?
oh yeah, absolutely. I think I've been on a spiritual path since I was a little boy. I
Mm.
remember jogging around the oval with my father, and at night, and pulling down the moon. Yeah, there was
Oh,
a full moon, and I was drawing it down, and I didn't know those words for it though. I was just doing it, and my
yeah.
father
Mm.
called up to me. He says, "What are you doing?" Ran off, and so that was kind of interesting. But I just felt natural that I could feel the energy,
Mhm.
and later on I learned it was called pulling
That's
down the moon. And then later on, I've got a very pop culture and spiritual path. I was influenced in the late '60s and '70s growing up with Jesus Christ Superstar, rock opera, Tommy, Godspell, even there were a bunch of things going on. But and then I read in 1972. I read the book Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and that was sort of like you know, that we could reach our full potential. And of course, that was just a vehicle to explain, that we're more than just our physical body. And
yeah.
so that was really revolutionary for me. And then I got heavily into martial arts, and I learned about intrinsic energy and chi. And then martial arts, I was really interested in the chi. And then that led me into yoga, and not the yoga that I see now, but it was sort of more fundamental, more back to basics, more ascetic. And it
Mhm.
was a group of Sikhs that taught Kundalini yoga
Mm.
Mm.
in Australia. So did that for several years. And then when I joined the Air Force, it was basically to get out of a bad environment.
Okay.
I needed to extricate myself from, because I could see that things were going south for me. And so when I was in the Air Force, and all those years, I kind of felt like there was the surface me, there was me on the surface, and I was pretending to be the toy soldier, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then, but there was always the spiritual bent, the real me below.
Mhm.
But in order to make it in straight life, you have to learn to play the game, and
Yep.
that's what I did. And though you might think of that's the royal imposter syndrome, it was actually the way I survived was emulating what was perceived to be normal, and also gently nurturing this other aspect of me. And then and so I so that led me to I used to meditate and also channel the energy and illuminate my chakras and things like that, and things that I could never ever speak to any of my work colleagues or
Yeah.
friends that I went surfing with. They just thought that was they disregarded entirely. And so, but after the tarot, um, I then explored Reiki because I was
Mm.
also interested in the energy once again, and
Mm-hmm.
I got attuned to Reiki, 1, 2, and 3, and Karuna Reiki in the early 2000s. And though I was at master level, there's one thing to be attuned, and there's another thing to be actually, call yourself a master.
Yeah.
So I thought that I should, you know, um, I guess, evolve it. And then so I wrote myself an instruction manual, um, and I designed a course, a how-to course, and for myself, and then I taught it for family and friends for a few years, and that was a really interesting experience because I used to do everything on one day, and so Reiki 1, 2, and 3, and then teach them all the symbols and how to attune. And
Mm-hmm.
but I did it by I would find out where the sacred sites are for the
Mm.
local people. And in Australia, I was in Canberra at the time, and there's a number of Aboriginal sacred sites, and so it
Yeah.
was a hiking day, and so I'd map it out. We go and each, as we walked, we'd do Reiki 1 and then practice the hands on. And then Reiki 2 would be a little bit further on, and then we practice the distance healing and doing those type of symbols. And then Reiki 3 was finally at the Reiki at the sacred site itself, and so I'd attune everyone to master level, and then after that we'd walk back and do the along the same path, but at each station we would then practice attuning, for the Reiki 2 and the Reiki 1 each other, and then after that there were follow-up sessions where we'd meet at a house and do that.
That's kind of a cool combination of like putting the the act of doing all of those steps with a pilgrimage to an actual place. Like, I've never heard of anything like that before. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I did it in Germany once for actually a US family. They were they were stationed there, and I
Mhm.
and I found a sacred site, and it's actually in German. It's called Holy Mountain, and it had been occupied since Celtic times, and then Roman times, and then by monks, warrior monks in the 12th century, and then they built a cathedral up there later, and all this was ruins now. And then later on in the blood and soil movement of the 1930s with the National Socialists in Germany, they built this massive outdoor amphitheatre, which is still there. And
Mm.
so you have this succession of all this usage by various cultures over the
Yeah.
centuries. And
So
sorry.
go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna ask, so both, I guess, two completely different places and two different completely parts of the world with two different completely types of cultures, but one being through so many different cultures. Did you have any experiences with the energy of the land as you were going through those pilgrimages with the Reiki energy?
Yes, and I should say that um, Reiki energy, at least in my experience, is different from the energy that I would feel in the sacred sites.
Mhm.
Reiki energy is more
Mm.
brimming. It brims, and I feel the tingling, and it flows. I can, um, it's like pins and needles, but it goes in waves. But when I was in those sacred places, it's a smooth energy. It's sort of kind of emanates from your body, from the solar plexus perhaps,
Mhm.
and it's smooth. If you open yourself up and you connect to that energy, it will flow. And if you understand things about um, the the lines of the earth or ley lines or things like
Yeah.
that, that's the type of, because I've done dowsing at Stonehenge and
Ooh.
and things like that, and so
What was
That's
that
the time.
like?
That was awesome. That was unbelievable. See, I mean, this is what I was talking about having a dual life. You had the spiritual me, and there was the military me. Here I was in the UK. I'd been sent there by the Royal Australian Air Force to do a targeting course with the Royal Air Force, which I was there for a month. So on weekends I went down, or one weekend I went down to Stonehenge, and it was pouring rain. There was nobody there,
It
but
was raining in England? What?
oh yeah,
No way.
yeah. Anyway, so there was me and these two pagan girls from Italy, and there was the tour guide, and she actually ended up being, I think, Druid, and so but getting such a personal tour of is the year 2002. You could go up close. I
Yeah.
understand now that you can't go anywhere near, but we were in amongst it. And she pulled out her dowsing rods and she explained how to use them. And we walked along, and then they moved as we crossed the lines.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
Mm.
So that is very interesting that it's like having to think about your life as these two separate things. But at the same time, if you didn't have that military experience, you wouldn't have been in all of those places to have
Yeah.
all of those experiences.
Right.
Yeah.
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 So it all comes
It's
together
for a
regardless.
purpose,
Yeah.
even
It
though
was
maybe it
Yeah.
for a
seems.
reason.
That's true. That's true. At the basis, at the fundamental basis of it, military life is good to teach you discipline,
Mhm.
and spiritual life, if it's supported by the scaffolding of that discipline, um, is the art of life.
It's interesting. It's interesting because we talked about being in the military, and then it's like you were living kind of like having to like know who your real self was and not really being able to do that, but like knowing what your love and interests were. I had kind of I wouldn't say an exact experience, but it was similar for me because I'm very much not into woo woo, but also like very much into history. And
Oh, yeah.
I was deployed to Iraq,
Oh,
and
yeah.
the whole time that I was there for a year, and the whole time I was like, I don't want to be over here as a soldier. I want to be over here as like an archaeologist or a
Right.
historian.
Yeah,
Like,
historian. Yeah.
like here I am, like in what many people think is the birthplace of humanity.
Mhm.
And instead, you have hell going on rather than being able to go see all these wonderful sights in this magical place,
Yeah. Right.
for humanity. So I can kind of see, like, I guess relate to a little bit about maybe how you felt, when you
Yeah.
being in the Air Force and kind of having to
What
fight
what
that.
year were you there? What
I
year?
I went in 2009, so I went
Oh,
in right at the when I went over there. I went over there during Iraqi freedom, and then they transitioned out of that.
He was
Then,
in the
mhm.
army.
Yeah, I was in the U.S. Army. Yeah.
Mhm.
well, okay. So an interesting, sort of coincidence. I was also in Iraq 2005, 2006, and
Okay.
I was a wing commander in the Royal Australian Air Force in intelligence, but my specialty was imagery analysis management. So I was selected to be an integrated officer with the US Army at Alford Palace,
Wow.
and so I had a US colonel above me, and all my troops were all US, and I was sort of, in there. And so,
Put in
and
there. Yeah.
when we flew in, we were on a C-130. We stopped midway to Baghdad, and it was near Nebuchadnezzar's pyramid.
Mm.
And I understand exactly what you're talking about. The Euphrates River Valley, the birthplace of civilization,
Yeah.
Nebuchadnezzar's pyramid. I guess there's some people associate it with the Tower of Babel. You know,
Mhm.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
things like that. So yeah, I absolutely agree. And I wrote a tarot poem about my flight, from Kuwait to Baghdad, and because it was really impacting me, like from spiritual and energetic perspective.
What did
Yeah.
that energy, what did the energy feel like there? What were you feeling?
It felt like war is an industry of Babylon. Like it was. This is this is no different from any other time.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that's how it felt, and that's what I put that into that poem. That it's called "World Knows," and yeah, so that's what it felt like. It was like another day. The energy, there was nothing sort
Mm.
of. We weren't doing anything else than any other civilization that's marched through there over the eons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is really kind of interesting, right? That it's the birthplace of humanity, and then also the birth to a certain extent, the birthplace of war,
Oh yeah,
right? Maybe
absolutely.
those
Yeah.
things go hand in hand, I guess,
Mm.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Mm-mm-mm.
Yeah, it's unfortunate actually when you look at war and humanity and civilization, you would
Yeah.
actually think that war was the natural state.
I know there's been more time of war than there ever has been of peace. Yeah.
Certainly in the case of the United States.
Yeah. Well, I
Yep.
kind of grew up. Well, I don't want to sound ignorant here, but I felt like I was born in 1980.
Oh
So
yeah,
I was born after Vietnam. Vietnam was like outside. That was a long time ago when I was a kid, as far as I was concerned, even though it really wasn't. And we had Saddam Hussein and Desert Storm in 1990. But other than that, I saw the end of the Cold War, like the end of the fall of the Soviet Union. The 1990s, for the most part, we had Bosnia and stuff like that. For the most part, it was pretty peaceful. I felt like,
that's true.
and then and then 9/11 and all that stuff happened, and it's like now we've kind of entered this new time where all I've known is
It's
war, and I was like, man,
perpetual.
this.
Yeah.
I wish we could go back to normal, but I don't think what you just said is I've kind of that's resonated lately with me, which is uh, when I was a kid, we were just lucky we weren't at war. That wasn't the normal state. The normal state
Mm-mm.
maybe is war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you consider the United States since 1776, it was born into war, the
Yep.
Mm.
Revolutionary War,
Yes.
and then so fast forward to 1812, okay, and
The Empire Strikes Back, as I like to
yeah,
call
yeah,
it.
and in particular, what was his name that wrote the Star Spangled Banner? Scott Key.
Francis Scott
Yeah,
Key. Yep.
Francis Scott
Yeah.
Key. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
Fort
So
McHenry.
he what he in that thing in that song which is now the national anthem, bombs bursting in air. You know,
Hmm.
at the time he was probably describing the sentiment, but that because it's a national anthem and the way that it kind of glorifies and it's aspirational and after that it became prescriptive. It
Mm.
is a statement of intent, and in fact, it's very similar to how you would write um, a manifestation. And so, when you
Mm.
consider that that song is sung, and how we feel about war, and how we feel about I say we because I'm an American citizen now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so and how we feel about changing the Constitution, in particular the Second Amendment. Yeah. Of course, you know that once you change anything, like the Constitution or the tax system, that we're going to get, they're going to screw us somehow. You know,
Yeah.
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
so with that in mind, America is does goes to conflict with a healthy appetite.
Hmm.
It's not
Yeah.
it's not a foreign concept.
No, it's
No.
been more of our time than not.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, if you were to say that America specifically, what I don't know if we're eager to go to war, but you don't have to do much to entice us, you know?
Yeah. Well,
And
Yeah.
I think that's
Like a
the average
starving
American.
grizzly bear in
Yeah.
February.
well, that's it's actually going to be it's the when you couple that with the American champion of the individual and the actual amount of degree of independence of movement that the commander has in the field in interpreting the rules of engagement and the object of the conflict. They war is fun. It's the big game. You practice, practice, practice. You do all your drills through the week in a
Yeah.
basketball team, and on Saturday it's the art, and that's where you have the fun, where you throw it all together in this dynamic, and that's what war is for the United States. It's all practice, 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 prepare, 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 and then go to war. Oh wow, this stuff works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the real issue there though isn't necessarily like just America and its population and the people of America. But I think the big business of
Yeah.
war
Mhm.
is
Oh,
really what
absolutely.
kind of drives that machine. And I don't and because so much of that is international, that are, multinational corporations, as we can see with things that are happening around the world now, I don't know if it matters necessarily if the United States is at war, as long as somebody is at war.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, like when, and it's a really unusual sentence to say, when the North Koreans fired a missile at the Ukrainians and they pulled the missile apart and they found it full of American parts. North Korean, Ukrainian, American parts. There's and all the rules and conditions that we.
I hadn't heard about that, Jason. Is that a recent news story? The
Yeah, absolutely. Not this week, last week.
Because I know North Korean troops had gone into the fight with Ukraine with the Russians. So
Yeah.
a North Korean missile captured by Ukrainians had
Well,
American
Sure.
parts.
it exploded.
It makes sense,
Apparently, United States doesn't manufacture anything anymore except for weapons parts.
Yeah,
except for weapons.
Great.
yeah.
Can we
And
go back
so,
to
Yeah,
making shoes or,
but
I don't know, barrels or
trucks.
something?
Yeah, yeah,
Whatever.
but with trade, it changes hands, and so when you sell it,
yeah.
and
You don't
you
know where
have
it's
all the
going.
rules and
Yep.
conditions, as it changes hands, it gets further away from the origin.
Mhm.
All
Yeah,
everything evaporates, and so they just see it. Oh, this is a circuit board, plugs in here. The servos go like this. There's the
Yeah.
guidance system.
All right. Well, let's
yeah.
get back to woo woo stuff. So, okay. So you have your military life and your spiritual life, and you're keeping them separate, but they're also very intertwined. So then at what point in your life do you get to just be open about it?
When I leave the military in 2007, and so I went to Iraq, and I came back, um, and life just fell apart. It was a total. I went through, I guess, a tower moment followed by a death, and
Mm,
then and so in a figurative sense, but in a real sense too, because how things were before and how things existed after were totally different. It was truly they were, they don't resemble one another, and so the freedom to be myself and be my true authentic self is happening now. And there was a period like I was doing phone readings and earning money and putting in tax returns. And then I did nothing for a very long time, 10 plus years with
mhm.
tarot. And then I've come back to it. So it's now, I guess I must have been in a hanged man
Oh,
situation over that period,
that
in
was
a
a long
pause.
time to hang upside down, Jason.
But, so I learnt to ski, drank a lot of beer and ate schnitzel, and had fun in Europe. And then I moved to the States and I picked it back up. So, but I'm really happy that I have, because I think it's being the true me.
Yeah. With all of the other parts still in there.
Yeah.
Because like I really liked the very beginning of your story about talking about being a little kid and feeling the energy of the moon. And then you go through all of these things where you're learning about energy. It's like all of these modalities of how to interact with that energy. So when you're doing tarot, do you also connect in with energies?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm using the distance healing. Um, you know, bringing thought forms, asking permission, putting them into the cards, dealing the cards. I'm channeling, and I call it. I'm in the reading space.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So the main thing that I wanted to make sure that we get to was you have developed your own, correct me if I'm wrong, but your own way of reading or your own specific spread, the Octopus, correct?
Well, it's not called Octopus of Dreams. Is the sort
Yes.
of my business name,
Oh,
but
okay.
yes, I've developed a long form type of spread
Mm-hmm.
that's that is a combination of a change statement or manifestation, and used in conjunction with that. And I call it the amphora of self actualization, is the name of the spread. But and the central concept is that in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which, by the way, I was taught in the military.
Bring it back around. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. So we start off with the shelter, the food, and then it moves up through emotional, and then as you develop as a human being and develop skills, and become very coherent and integrated, then you have self actualization, like a person's they've made it in life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so but my concept is using something like that, but it's closer to the Buddhist concept of rebirth. It's rebirth within a life, and so and also there's a bit of a few assumptions. You know how the double slot experiment
Mm-hmm.
about, okay, so that if you observe something and measure it, that the universe changes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the assumption that I'm making is that's a clue that if you send your statement of intent and you have salience, you have importance, and you do it in certain steps, that you can actually influence the future. But I think of it as the extended now, and so we all live in a very big now. If you don't put the timeline on it, and then you can influence the events that come into your life that are coming out of that are gravitating out of the field of events. And so you can then, if you observe an act, you can then take those and create the reality that you want to live in. And so the spread has the first three cards are to do with self actualization, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But I
So
have them.
before we get to the spread, the inspiration for this came from a dream. Is that correct?
The inspiration for Octopus of Dreams
Mm-hmm.
it comes from a dream that I had many
Oh,
years
okay.
ago,
Okay.
and so the dream was that I was laying in bed asleep, of course,
Mm-hmm.
and I dreamed about this ball. This ball was spinning and churning, and it made a noise like this, and like it was a machine. And every now and it was very, very colourful. And every now and again, like a petal or an arm or something would come out, and I would see a scene from life, like someone
Mm.
being born, and then it would go back in, and another thing, and you see another scene, a street scene somewhere, and then another, and then you see someone die. And then on the surface of the ball, you could also see other scenes as it's going around, and then the arm comes out. And so I wrote about it in my dream journal, and I first originally called it a psychedelic animal, and then later on, I I thought about it, and I thought of Oracle of Dreams, and then I thought about the arms, and then I
Mhm.
and then I called it the Octopus of Dreams, and that's where the Octopus of Dreams comes from. However,
Ah.
there's another dream that I had many years earlier, around in my late teens, where I'm on a street, and the whole street is has got octopuses everywhere, except they're not like we know them. They're like uh, dashes of lines, and they're moving, and they're all up the walls. They're all along the street. They're extending. They're over everything that we can see, and so I'm walking down, looking at the, and they become aware that I can see them, and they think it's really funny, and they're coming speeding past me and kind of smiling, and then moving and merging with the. But all the buildings have got their these white dots and all up and down them, all down the street, and so that's another dream.
That's a really incredible dream.
Yeah.
Just to imagine all these octopus things everywhere. Wow.
And it's also interesting with the first dream you were explaining with the octopus arms, and we were just talking about time. In the double slit experiment, we kind of got into a conversation there about time, about living in the now, like living in a really big now.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
And then talking about the octopus and where you were seeing like maybe like a birth scene or a death scene,
yeah.
and then the arms of the octopus. It got me wondering also maybe about a possible like shape of time or like I don't know, like
Oh, yeah.
it's it's
Yeah.
uh it's really interesting because I was gonna make a comment before that about I've been that's been something that's really been intriguing me lately is like the nature of time. I think that's like one thing that just really has me stumped in, you know, I just don't know if I can wrap my brain around it. Like I try, like I understand, learning about time not being linear and like the nows and it's just something I've really struggled with. I feel like I've had a little bit of a breakthrough with it lately, of kind of understanding, but yeah, it's not easy to wrap your mind around. But I think it's really interesting to talk about what you were kind of discussing earlier about thinking about time differently, and then if we're able to recognize that time isn't what we think it is, then maybe that has implications for all our woo woo stuff.
Well, that's right, and that is what I'm thinking about when I designed the spread. It was what you just touched on then, but didn't say, is the evolution of consciousness. And so
Mm.
there's been a couple of steps in the evolution of human consciousness, and one was the development of language, and the next one was actually the written language. And since then, nothing. But I read a book by a guy called Dr. Godfrey Smith. It was called Other Minds, and it was about how another consciousness has developed on Earth besides humans, and it was about the octopus mind,
Yeah.
and anyway, in that he sort of like postulates that the next evolution will be sort of like projection of our minds, or an external sort of conduit to external to ourselves, where we're more connected with possibly um, our environment from the future.
Mm.
Now, now there's another doctor, Dr. Ramakrishnan, and he just wrote a book called The Neuroscience of Tarot. Now he
Mm.
talks about prediction and precognition in that, and he spoke about, it's very briefly, that they've done experiments that they have identified part of the brain that has these wavelengths that we know what's going to happen in the future, but we, for some reason, we get it wrong. But they can measure the wavelengths, and they use tests across 12 months about which song's going to be, or which movie's going to be the most popular. And so when they tested with someone who got it right and someone who got it wrong, and they measured the wavelengths of that particular part of the body or the mind, they could see that intrinsically in that person's mind, they had the knowledge of what was going to happen, because it was in the way the wavelengths were. But when they got it wrong somehow, so there's some sort of connected, point there that it's a long stretch, but I feel that's the evolution of consciousness. It would be in the precognition of the expanded now.
Yeah, I think there's some kind of connection there between something like that, whether it's a part of the brain, whether it's a chemical in the brain that possibly gets activated easier with some people rather than others, or whether it's a chemical. I don't know. I have a lot of theories, all of which were probably wrong, but um, yeah, I've seen some interesting things where people talk about DMT and like ayahuasca, and then and then when I speak to people who are mediums and people who have, who it seems like they have similar experiences, and so yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, at least that science is doing experiments with this
Yeah.
stuff, because maybe we can get some real answers, because I think it is real science that we don't understand yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, he actually talks about that, how the scientists that we've always for a very long time had the ability to test and measure that, but haven't done so. It wasn't until
Mhm.
there was an attitudinal change of the scientists that actually, they go and do yoga, and they
Yeah,
they, they,
yeah.
they, they become more connected with spirit, and it's
Mhm.
influenced the way that they apply their science. And then it's kind of proving, there was this other thing.
Mm-hmm.
But what you said about DMT and chemicals and shamanic practices, particularly, I think there's a lot of value, um, and I don't think that you should necessarily go out and experiment. But
Yeah.
it sort of points to the way that humanity has interacted with the environment. We've always changed the environment for our own survival, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
building a shelter or planting food. So, we're developing crops. And so it makes sense that to expand our mind and our consciousness and possibly have precognition and or create the reality that we want to live in, that we have to somehow manipulate the chemicals in a certain discipline.
Yeah, it's been a working theory that I talked to Jenny about maybe even a couple of years ago now, of wondering if there wasn't something that was maybe more, because I think if you ask most people who are mediums or have some kind of intuitive ability, they say, well, anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. Like you can learn how to do it, you can train how to do it. And I think that's true. I think that's true. I think I've seen enough evidence for myself to believe that. But then I wonder, why is it easier for some people? Like, why does some people naturally start doing those things while others have to kind of be taught and like work harder at it? And I just wonder if it couldn't be something like that some people just access more naturally because their brains are a little bit different, because we all do, right? We all have different abilities and we're all a little bit, different genetics and so, so I don't know. It's interesting though.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's an excellent point that you brought up, Frosty. I've thought about this too, because a lot of people walk around thinking that they're not psychic, and they are, but they just need to go and have some training,
Yeah.
and it really, and some people are natural, and you just think about sport. If you use that as an analogy, Some
Yeah.
people can pick up tennis really easily and be great at it, but other people would have to train and to get to a competitive level, and so it's just different. And but we know I think the best evidence that I have seen, or at least indicated that you can train to be psychic, is the criticism that I'd heard from remote viewers, and as they observe psychics, because psychics can, people who are truly talented psychics can do the same things as remote viewers, but
Mm-hmm.
the remote viewers see their work as sloppy, and they think,
Mm-hmm.
oh, they can with a bit of discipline, they'd be better.
Yeah.
And so, but
Don't get me on that. Don't get me
yeah,
on that
yeah,
soapbox, Jason, because
yeah, but
I feel the same way.
yeah, but
Frosty bought me these remote viewing books for Christmas last year, and it's like the manual from like the military, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to handle this, dude.
no, I
Just
agree.
let me do my thing, you know?
Yeah, but that's an indication that you can learn it. And
Yeah.
and I recently, like we talked about, you mentioned in my introduction that I write reviews. I wrote a review for the Psychic Art of Tarot by Matt Oren for Tabby, and that's available on the Tabby blog at, if anyone wants to look it up. But that's an excellent book. And, he only mentions tarot cards a few times in that, but there's a lot of exercises that are really, that could make your tarot reading so much more impactful and deeper and expansive. It's a really wonderful book.
Awesome. So let's get back to the tarot spread. The Octopus of Dreams tarot spread. Now please continue. What
Okay.
is it?
Okay, so you got the three cards that I mentioned, and they're in a vase shape, and they're traveling through the space-time continuum, and they represent the 6 areas or 7 areas of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and they've come out of your soup of experiences in life. So and so that's moving, and then in conjunction with this spread, I've got instructions of how to write a good statement of change or manifestation. There's several points and steps that you have to hit. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so and then you deal 3 cards for the gravitating field of events. And so, and they're called chance, change, and opportunity. They're the positions, but the positions are fluid. It can be any card, and so they're tumbling out of the gravitating field of events towards your amphora of self-actualization. But because you've made a statement, and in particular because you've asked the question, okay, and you deal cards that you conceptually are an expansive of your now, which I call the weather pattern of your recent near now and recent future, and so everything is coming towards this, and then in those cards, however you interpret them, according to the existing cards in the amphora and the question, then you can make decisions on whether you want to grab hold of that cubic centimeter of chance and take advantage of that synchronistic event, or it can highlight some cautionary thing, and you know what to avoid. And so that's the general gist of it.
So, 2 questions, and you can answer them in whatever order you want. So first question, do you use this to read for other people? And second question is this spread with all of its directions available for other people to do for themselves?
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes. Okay.
Okay. Yes, and I actually call it a tarot assessment rather than a tarot reading, and it's written, and it's long form, so you get it as a PDF, and
Okay.
also wrapped into it, you get this the statement of change or change statement,
Mhm.
but that is based on your question that motivated you to get this in-depth reading.
So
Now,
is that available on your website?
yes, it is. Yeah,
It
yeah,
sounds fascinating. And
yeah.
I love that I know some of our viewers, especially Priestess of Wonderland, she loves some journaling. So I was just thinking like it incorporates like having to think deeper, having to write, having to like come up with this kind of almost like an action plan of like what the hell you're even wanting to know about, what you want your life to look like, and then going into the cards and seeing
Mm.
what the like it sounds like, being able to see that there's different options available for this one question or whatever. Is that kind of the gist of what you
Yes, yes, exactly. And so it's a big reading, it's sort of like your vision statement plus your action plan
Mhm.
together.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing about the change statements or the statement of change is that I couldn't understand when I was first in getting involved with the new wave movement and overlapping with pagan as well, what affirmations and spells were,
Mhm.
and what were the components. And so
Yeah.
I wrote a paper on it, and it combined spells, affirmation, prayers, confessions, vision statements, slogans, mottos, and national anthems. And there's common components for all
Mm.
those things. And then I wrote a how to make a good one. And that's I first time I wrote it was 2003, and I have revised it a few times, and
Yeah.
it's a and yeah, there's a number of components.
I like that. I knew that's where you're going with earlier when you were talking about the national anthem. But
Yeah,
I like that idea that you're thinking of pretty much any thought that is repeated or words that are repeated, that they all kind of end up intentionally or unintentionally being an intention of or a manifestation or a spell or like whatever kind of word you want to put on it. Yeah, because we've been talking a lot lately over the past few years about thoughts being things, but then putting the either the written word or the saying it out loud, it just I guess to me it feels like it just adds that even more power behind it.
absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right there, and it can go in a negative way too. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
like I have a friend, and she on her Facebook page she talks about who she is, a couple of lines, and the last line is busy mom.
Mhm.
And I said, look, you should get rid of that or
Yep.
change it, because if you put that out there, that's what
Oh,
you're going to
yeah.
be. You're going
Yes,
to be
I had
busy
to
mom.
I had to learn that too because I would
Yeah.
always think or say, "I don't have enough time. I don't have enough
Oh,
time." And it's
yep.
like the same thing. It's like the more you think that you don't have enough time, the less time you're
You
gonna
won't.
have. So it's like you gotta change it to a positive
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not a negative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never even thought. I mean, I don't want to necessarily. I don't know if we need to jump back into it, but just going back into what you're talking about, I never really thought about things like a national anthem being something like a manifestation. Like this is something that you're repeating all the time.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah. For hundreds of years
especially
by millions of people on
yeah,
a daily basis. Yeah.
at every major event. And it's so you're definitely putting those thoughts and ideas
Yeah.
out. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yep.
hmm
Yep. And you are making events gravitate towards you that fit
Mhm.
within the description of the national anthem. And the other one is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Millions of people saying the Pledge of Allegiance every
Y-
day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Hmm.
when I became an American citizen, it conflict and the willingness to engage in conflict was not only um, prominent, it was central to becoming an
Mm.
American citizen. That
Yeah.
you're willing to defend the United
Oh,
States.
yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah, I mean that's oh, it reminds me of the old Metallica video. What is democracy? Well, I reckon it has something to do with young men going off and killing each other, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll leave it there. But um, there's actually something I wanted to ask about that you talked about at the very beginning of the show that I wasn't completely sure about, so I wanted to get your more information on it. You were talking about pulling down the moon.
yeah,
So I haven't heard that term before. I can imagine kind of what you were talking about, but can you kind of give us a little bit more explanation on that?
yeah. Well, first I should say that not a super expert on it, but I was describing my experience as a little boy to some new agey women in Australia, and they were definitely on the pagan side of things, and they were saying that you're pulling down the moon, and and so and they described it that there's the energy of the moon that you pull it down into your body. You know, you can access it. You know, sort of like creation. It sounded very feminine, actually, the way that
Hmm.
they described it, and that's about as much as I know. But
Mm,
they just called it pulling down the moon. But this, like when I'm talking about when I had this conversation and when I did it as a little boy, I've done it, other times as well. But yeah, there was decades between me having that term
Yeah.
explained to me, and so, but that lady, I later did a reading for her, and she lived on a farm and she had horses and things like that, and she was married to a guy, and her mother lived with them, and they were both witches,
Mm.
and they hadn't told the husband that they were witches,
Oh,
and they
surprise,
used
surprise.
and 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 they used to go out on full moon ceremonies and go to the cardinal points of the farm and distribute menstrual blood so she could
Mm.
get pregnant, and she did, and a horse died at the same
Wow.
time. Yeah,
Oh my
so
goodness. Get a life, take a life, I guess.
yeah, it's exactly, and so um, oops, I lost my thing. Okay,
Interesting. So yeah, it
yeah,
sounds like it's just like connecting with the energy of the moon and feeling it as part of your
I think so.
and part of your
yeah.
energy. It's also interesting too for two things. One, that it just seems, as small children, when we're not bogged down with all the things in our current life, that we are so much more open to the intuitive things that we already know. And then I was
Yeah.
thinking about our youngest child. When she was about 2 or 3, she would stand at the window, and whenever she saw the moon, she would just be completely enthralled with it, and she would
Mhm,
talk to it like it was a person.
Oh yeah,
mhm.
And it was just I just, of course, I'm a woo-woo lady, so I was like I just thought it was the greatest thing ever. So
Yeah,
to hear that you also had, like, this interaction with the moon as a child
the moon.
is pretty
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, I wonder yeah, and it's funny that you bring that up because I was thinking and I decided I wasn't gonna say it, so I
Yeah.
didn't say it, was that I remember specifically, like, many times being in the backseat of a car, like, driving through the night, like, when I was a kid, and I would
Mhm.
just hyper focus on the moon.
Yep, me
oh,
Like,
too,
I would
and
just
it looked like
watch
the
the
moon was
moon the
following
whole
you.
yeah,
Yeah,
and so I would just stay hyper focused, and I would watch the moon, like, for the whole car ride,
me
30 minutes,
too.
45 minutes, and so, yeah, I mean, the moon, well, it's kind of one of those things where we have so much going on now, going back to that whole, like, we're too busy,
Mhm.
but, a lot of it is like a manufactured busy,
Yeah.
scrolling the internet and,
Mhm.
I'm busy
Yeah.
looking at, YouTube videos and, uh,
Unless it's
which
the
by the
witching
way, if
hours,
you
please
and this
watch
is
the
the
end.
watch all the way to
Keep
the end,
watching
please.
the witching hours.
Give us a like, at least comment down below. But yeah, like really like this ability to like where we were talking about this before with Rissa last week about people being out and looking at the stars and that being the form of entertainment and
Yeah.
seeing the moon and all these things being really, really important and understanding the cycle. Like now we look at our phone, for time or, but like to know that, hey, like it's starting to change seasons and that the stars are in this position. And so like
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, maybe, something that we need to have a better relationship. I'm sure that Priestess of Wonderland would say that all of us probably need to have a little bit of a
Yes.
closer
Follow the
relationship with the
moon.
moon.
Yeah.
I do want to ask one thing. Lightworker asked, had a statement here, and I wasn't quite sure if you knew what this was, but it sounds like it's rooted in motivational interviewing. Are you familiar with that term?
No, not
And
at all.
light worker, if you don't mind, can you tell us what motivational interviewing is, and maybe we can kind of get some more information on that?
So before we continue, Frosty, do you wanna kinda reset here and let anybody know if
Yeah,
you got questions?
yeah. So if you're joining us, since the beginning of the show, welcome in. We're glad to have you. Our guest tonight is Jason Cosmos. We're talking about the tarot. We're talking about we've ended up talking about a lot of
Learned a
things
lot
today, like
about
we
things,
normally
yeah.
do. And I'm sure we'll get into some more stuff. We've so if you have a question, if you listen and you have some questions for Jason, let us know. And feel free. We have links pinned at the top of the chat. And if you're listening later, the links will be in the description down below to be able to find Jason Cosmos online. So if you would like to try out his some readings and
Mhm.
find out more about him, you can check that out at octopusofdreams.com and also on Instagram. Is that correct, Jason?
Yeah, that's correct.
Awesome.
So I
All
wanted
right.
to know, some maybe either a few or maybe a specific instance where, you were either giving your Octopus of Dreams reading to someone else or to yourself, and, what that kind of outcome was there afterwards.
Right. Yeah, I haven't. The best outcome that I've had from a client was a lady in New York. She's a tarot reader, and she does a lot of Peloton first thing in the morning.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mm.
so I did a reading for her, and it was this reading that I was talking about, and with a change statement at the end. And she took and part of the instructions for doing the change statement is that it has you have to make it not only speak aloud, but you have to it has to be an ecstatic experience. That is, you have to be exerting yourself, and so she took my change statement and she adjusted it a bit, which is excellent because it's important that you make it your own.
Mhm.
Yes, so she thought about it and adjusted it, and then every day on the Peloton she would do it.
Mm.
And then, and also, there's another important aspect is that you don't do it forever. You don't keep on pushing, because
Yeah.
then you just muddy the water. A bit like people that want tarot readings all the time. Is Chad
Yeah.
coming back? No, he's not. But
How many times are you gonna ask?
yeah, I know. For years,
Yeah.
anyway. So just the same concept as that. When you're doing a change statement, you only do it for a finite period of time. Then you have release of effort. Okay.
Mhm.
And then after release of effort, okay, you stop doing it, you stop pushing, and then you allow
It
the
to be
gravitating events,
received.
yeah, to come in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you watch and you act, you observe and act, you scan, observe, act on synchronistic events coming your way. Anyway, she followed um, all my explanation in her own way, and
Mhm.
now she's doing parties. Fifth Avenue,
Wow.
and like kids' birthday parties, for very rich people, and also she's gotten into Wall Street, and has been invited to do parties for work functions,
Wow. That's
and so
awesome.
she's had a great success there. But that's only one person.
Yeah.
The others, they compliment me and say how wonderful it is, and some people will have commented that they think it's a bit like chaos magic, and I
Okay.
don't know what that term meant. I had to
Yeah.
look it up,
Mhm.
but I can see the connection.
It
Um,
also sounds like people it's not like you're not just getting the reading and then something changes. Like, you have to be a part of your own action plan, and you have to take the action of changing what you want it to be, and that the reading is a guide to help you
Mm.
figure that out.
right,
And a lot of people don't wanna do the action.
okay, and so now you get into the cyclical act. Okay, so you got the big concept, the vision statement. This is and then there's a cyclical act that I refer to as the tarot assessment cycle, and that's more for me. It's not only descriptive of what happens in a tarot reading, but in this, what you just described, Jenny, was excellent. That it's ongoing, and then
Mhm.
you've got to do it, but you come back, and so the first part of it is in the person has a question, and then there's collection, and there's collation, and there's an analysis, and then there's the advice. But it goes around in a cycle, and it moves on as your life moves on. Okay.
Mhm.
However, as you're doing a reading, particularly as the follow-on readings might be in person, okay, that what I just described there goes on within the reading as well. You're collecting, collating, analyzing, asking a question of your client, and then ongoing. So it becomes collaborative, and it's more useful to them too.
Yeah.
But in a bigger sense, back to the bigger cycle, the important part before the next reading is that you actually get feedback from
Mhm.
the client, and so you can adjust the question. And then if you have a follow-on client that you're reading for across a period of time to help them prosecute the battlefield of their life, that they all have a series of questions, like their questions about their life, and you can help them construct this, that are their principal requirements that they want answered to make decisions. And so there might be 3, 4, 5 of these. And so when you're doing the follow-on readings, as they're coming up, you're answering those questions, and then as they're going through their life, if they're journaling particularly, they're writing down the synchronistic events and what's happened, and it feeds back in. And so that's the whole concept.
Hmm.
I feel like it was interesting too when you were talking about your client that did her said her intention on the Peloton every day. We just recently, one of the more recent channelings that I did, the energy that came through was really talking about mantras and how important mantras were. And
Yeah.
that's pretty much exactly what you just said. It's like, you can't just ho hum it and say, I wish I had whatever. It's like you have to have that intention behind it. You have to have that energy behind it. And then you have to do it repeatedly. But then, like you said, like, then you have to allow space for it to be received.
Yes, and that's
Yeah.
it's super important. You just go, just say it. It has to be important to you. It has to have
Yep.
meaning, and you have to believe it.
Yep.
There's a degree of suspending belief, and then suspending disbelief as well.
Yeah.
You know, and then after that, then you can make believe.
Then that's the funnest part.
Yeah. I
uh,
always think that's the key. It's like talking about that again, about actually having to believe it, To
Yes.
believe that it's going to work is key, which is why why I think there's a benefit for so many people with all the different religions and all the different. It's like all of these things work for those people when they believe it.
Yep.
And
Oh
we've
yeah,
often talked about how I've talked a lot, and I bring this up with Jenny a lot every time I see it because it's like just something I think I'm learning and I'm gathering evidence for myself, which is like this idea that like I don't know if ritual is really needed. I think that we can do things without ritual, but I think ritual plays a key a key part of people believing it. The ritual itself gives the person the belief that it is possible. Whereas if they don't commit that ritual, I feel like some people don't believe that it can actually happen. So the ritual becomes a key part of manifesting.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. That's I agree.
Okay.
Um, yeah, you have to, and the way that you might come to that belief, or how it gets reinforced. It might be through the things of being a witch. Like the way that you sweep the floor, what you do when you walk through doorways, things like that. Or
Hmm.
if you're into crystals, and the way that you build your crystal grid, and or you have an altar and it's the way of reinforcement, and
Hmm.
and so I totally agree. And yeah,
So Frosty Lightworker gave us the information about the motivational interviewing. Did you want to read over it
Yeah.
for us?
Yeah. So, Lightworker, it said, sounds like it's rooted in motivational interviewing, which is a therapy used for helping people to connect with their values or recognize their grain and work with their authentic self to resolve uh, uh, ambivalence and inner conflict. And then, Lightworkers also saying assess readiness for change, stage of change, develop discrepancies, how we are not honoring our true self, and then develop an action plan.
Yeah, sounds very similar.
it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah,
And learn
interesting.
how we block ourselves from receiving. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very
it was
similar.
very similar.
That's cool. Well, people in the chat, don't forget if you have questions for Jason, please put them in there.
Yep.
If you're at Twitch, if you're ever on Twitch, you can use the
Yep.
highlight your comment so that we can see it easier.
Yeah. And we'll see them. Yeah. Any tarot questions? Any questions about the tarot? Any questions about his reading of the tarot? Feel free to put them in there. Um, so we were talking earlier about the starting off with the Rider Waite deck. Have you where are you now? Are you someone who tends to use kind of do you have like a deck that you tend to use still the most often, or do you use lots of different tarot decks? What's your kind of how do you approach that?
Okay, yeah, I've got many decks. I've been
We all do, don't
afflicted
we?
with the deck buying addiction.
Hmm. Aren't
Yeah.
we all?
But
Yeah.
yeah, and so I attend a reading studio every Monday night, and I take along a different deck, and so I get to use them. Otherwise, they just sit on the shelf.
Hmm.
Hmm.
But when I'm reading it at the fairs and markets, I use the Modern Witch Tarot or the Murder of Crows. I give them the choice. But the Modern Witch is a fantastic, RWS emulated deck, and it's particularly good because every single person in it is a woman, and and all my clients are women. Very few men, and you know that yourself.
Yeah, which is kind of I don't know. I guess it's not weird, but it is true. Like Um, because we were at the same event, and that's where we met. And yeah, I mean, all of your clients that day were female, right, Jenny? Or I guess
Yes.
mostly women.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm out there. I'll get a tarot reading. So I don't know, but it is true. It does seem to be heavily dominated by one side over the other there.
Yeah,
Which has always been interesting too, because we've talked about this before too. So I don't know how much we need to hammer down on that, but we always have, there's a lot more. It seems like there's a lot more female readers and mediums and psychics and all that stuff. But we've had plenty on this show, also of male tarot readers and male psychics and male,
Mhm.
whoever. It just I don't know. I don't because when we like just this show, we've probably been about 50-50. But if you go out and go out and you start looking at the numbers, I think it is heavily dominated by the women.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know. We've had conversations with that before, but I don't know. I'll go get a read. Maybe next time. Maybe next time we run into you at the thing, I'll ruin that ruin that streak that day for you. I'll get the Murder of Crows because I do like the Murder of Crows deck. That's a good deck.
Oh, it's outstanding. Great art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had another question too, which was okay. Well, we have a question. We have a question from chat. Well, real quick, Lou says that Lars has been loving the Lord of the Rings deck. If that's what draws him to doing readings, then I will take it. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that you have to have a connection with the deck, and that's why I used the Wizard deck, because I like that, and then I built a relationship with it, and that works. So if that's what it takes, then that's great. Um, and Woo Rider said,
Hold on. Before you get to
oh,
the question, Shadow Max
okay.
said men already know everything. That's why.
I'm glad I
men
didn't say that.
men think they know everything. Shadow Max, just so you know. Okay, go ahead. Wee Rider's question is
Well, what is the difference between different tarot decks, and can you explain that? Thanks. That
Is
one's
that
for
for
you,
me?
Jason. So why
yeah.
use different tarot? Why use
Okay.
different tarot decks?
Yeah, it's a really good question and very well asked. So I think it's a personal preference. It's an energetic preference. It's what resonates with you, or what vibes with you, the frequency. The there is a degree of the aspect of mis. It's the early deck, the early Rider Waite Smith deck is criticised because there's not many women in it, and there's certainly no people of colour. And
Mhm.
so, and that's why I like the modern witch, because the balance is totally turned, and there's many shades of different people in that deck. It depends. It's really a mood thing too. It's an energy, mood. What seems to be correct, and what can resonate with your clients better. Um,
Mhm.
and also what you feel comfortable. So you have to be comfortable with it as well. Once
Yeah.
you get a deck, you just can't whip it out and then go to the market and oh, this is the first time I've used it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be a disaster. You have to be competent and confident in the use of it,
Yeah.
rather than you just can't turn up with a deck that you've never used before, because because you're interpreting the art too
Mhm.
in relation to the
Yeah,
question, and in relation to each other. The cards.
yeah. And so, yeah, I think, so, yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think it's important on some respect. You definitely have the reader has to have a connection, but also, for the person that's being read, also to have some kind of connection to the artwork for them to be
Oh
kind
yeah,
of interested and be able to kind of take the messages going there for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. Yeah. So
So,
I hope that answers your question, Boo Riders.
this was
And
something.
also, I just wanted to say
Go ahead.
also that can be also different forms of divination, Woo Riders. So, like I read runes also, and in a lot of ways, for me, reading runes and reading tarot is exactly the same. In my mind, like it's not the same, but the way that the trust I have in that tool of divination is the same, if that makes any sense. And so you kind of have to, you also kind of have to build up with that deck, You also have to build up with that tool, whether it's bones or whatever,
Mhm.
kind of your confidence. Because if you're not confident with those things,
Yep.
that's when you start questioning yourself, and then messages get kind of messed up. Yeah,
Mhm.
Sure.
Even with
Absolutely.
mediumship too.
yeah,
So Luce was talking about some decks are better for different types of readings, which I know that a lot of us in our community feel that way too. And Luce, you were not here at the beginning. I want you to know that Jason is also a cat rescue person.
yes.
But Jason, do you have like a certain deck that is better for like a love reading or for career reading, or like do you find that different decks are better for different topics?
Mm. I don't pull them necessarily for the topic.
Hmm.
Um, I would I would not use Murder of the Crows for a love reading. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
more by exclusion. I would much rather use Modern Witch. Um, yeah, with with career readings, it could be either. Um, but certainly, if you're, because you want to have a happy outcome, and Murder of the Crows has kind of got an ominous dark feel to it.
So that one's not good for love. But other than that,
No,
is you're good.
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, see, there we go. Luce was at the cat rescue board meeting. That's why they were late.
Oh, really?
There we go. Woo Rider asked, "What is the difference between reading palms and tarot?" I'll let either of you answer that one.
Do you
Okay.
know
Well,
you know a lot about reading palms? I know very little.
no, I've had palms read, and
Hmm.
I'm interested in that. That's but the way I would approach it is that because your palms, they don't change,
Hmm.
and so it's very unusual to continually get palm readings.
Yeah, like once you got
Yeah,
it read once, it's
yeah.
Yeah,
So it would change. It only change between readers and the environment that you're living in,
hmm.
and your question, and so I that's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
That and
yeah,
I mean, whereas a tarot reading is far more flexible and um, more likely to be able to give you useful information,
Yeah.
every 3 weeks. If you get a palm reading every 3 weeks, especially from the same palm reader, it, you're not necessarily going to have information that you could
yeah,
utilize.
Yeah.
yeah. There shouldn't be any change. Yeah,
Seems to
because
me
I know,
like
like,
a palm reading. I mean, I don't know really, but it seems to me that a palm reading is a lot more general information about
yeah,
your life
life,
overall.
length of life, children, why, like things like that.
But I'm sure
Um,
there's other ways to interpret it than
yeah, for
just
sure.
the traditional.
Whereas tarot, runes, things like that, you can ask very specific questions about whether or not you should take a job, or
Yeah.
what you need to do to get the job that you want, or love life, or I mean, really the
Yeah.
possibilities are endless.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I think that would be a good program writer. Hope that helps you out there, Woo. Um, do you have a favorite card?
Yes, the tower. The tower represents my spirit guide. I got that from a channeled self reading I did a couple of years ago, and the spread's called "Say Hi to Your Spirit Guide" by
Mm,
a lady from Florida called Erin, but her business is called Little Shop of Light and Love, and
cute.
yeah, so and it's a really brilliant spread, and the tower came up, and also as a channeled reading, it was kind of interesting to see the words that came out because it spoke about that not everything that the tower is involved in is going to be a catastrophic, ripped down to the fundamental bedrock of your life. It
Yeah.
could
Mhm.
be it could be something like a whisper heard out of the corner of your ear as you're in a public space, and but that little whisper is that piece of information will will be the key thing that you need at that point.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So and it reminded me of actually a scene out of Minority Report where do you remember that movie? They had these
I
precogs.
We saw it in the theater when it came out, and then I've never seen it again. So
Okay,
I remember
It's
okay,
the main
been a
parts,
while.
but yeah.
okay. So in the future, they've got these precogs that are floating or in float tanks, in sensory deprivation tanks, and they can predict or in their precognition, they can see future crimes, and the police go out and stop the crimes from occurring. Anyway, in the movie, of course, I think it was 2000, so it's over 20 years old. Um, um, what's the name of the guy, the Scientologist?
Oh, Tom Cruise,
Yeah, Tom
right?
Cruise. Thank you.
Yep. Mhm.
He in the movie, his character goes and saves one of the precogs, pulls her out of the float tank and the sensory deprivation tank, and and is trying to save her from the system. And evidently the system's manipulating them somehow to cover up crimes. Anyway, he's dragging her through a shopping mall, and she's walking through, and she's getting hits all the time, and she's telling him about, of course they're being chased, and she's saying, "Stop here, go there," and then there's one point that a woman is passing her, and she reaches out and touches her and says to her, "Don't go home. He knows." And then she keeps moving. And so, that's the kind of thing that I think that I felt my spirit guide was saying to me in that channeled reading that I did. And so I always I think of the tower as being something friendly.
So that was going to
Mhm.
be my question, was what do you think is one of the most misunderstood or misinterpreted cards? Definitely the tower would be in that list.
Yeah, and also possibly the Two of Swords. Yeah.
So what is your interpretation of the Two of Swords?
Well, because it's a two, it's always going to be something about choices, and but I see it as, I mean, getting back to the sensory deprivation tank, the person they've got the blindfold on, okay, which also covers the ears, okay, they're covered like this with the swords in the air. They've got their back to the water, so they've closed themselves off from the emotions. So they are taking in information from alternative sources. They've got their rabbit ear antennas up. They're bringing in information. They've sent out their envoys and their spies, and they're taking in alternate intelligence before they make a decision about the
Mm.
situation they're in. It's still about choices, maybe about a dilemma, but I just think that it's a little bit more expansive than being in a hard place and not knowing what to do.
Yeah, I like that
Mhm.
interpretation of it, that they're in the position of trying to make a choice, but it's not that they're ignorant of their choices.
Right.
They're
And
taking in information, yeah.
they're in a forest. Can't see the forest for the tree situation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're coming. They're getting alternate intelligence.
Yeah, I like that. We're getting many compliments about your crystal balls.
Yeah. That
Allison had said it a long time ago. Shadow Max also said they are pretty amazing.
Thank you. Thank
Do
you.
you use them for
No,
divination?
if I scry, I use a TV that is not set to a channel, and I read the snow.
Okay. What kind of
Oh.
information do you get from that?
Well, it's actually it's energetic.
Mhm.
And the snow kind of puts you in a state a little bit like white noise for
Mhm.
meditation,
Yeah.
and it's whatever. It's not what I see. It's what I'm feeling inside.
Mhm.
It's within. But that's the technique I use if I really want to scry.
Okay.
about a situation, what I need to see.
Yeah, that's, I guess going back to that, the sensory deprivation, putting yourself
Yeah.
in a just sort of somewhat distracted sense. So getting your senses sort of distracted so that you can see past the
Yeah.
normal 5 senses, I guess.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to one of the things you read in your bio, you had talked about how you had been doing tarot for quite a bit, I guess, by like recording and doing that remotely, and that you had somewhat recently started doing in-person readings. Am I
Yeah,
correct about that?
that's
How
right.
so? How has that gone for you? Have you noticed any difference between what you did before and doing them in person? And what are your thoughts on that?
Okay. Yeah, I'm on the 25-year plan. I didn't I didn't buy a deck and just turn up on TikTok and read the book. Yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
some horrible stuff. No,
Yep.
and the thing I should say, it's a spiritual journey and it's not a race.
Mhm.
But I didn't feel competent or confident, um, and I've used those terms before, and until recently. I first time was September in 2023 in DC, and I realised that I was ready, and I'd probably been ready a long time. And I think, at least for me, that was the necessary thing. That like getting a promotion in the army, you shouldn't. It shouldn't be a shock to you to put on that extra stripe. It should be like the next day you're ready for it. You're prepared, and so that's what it felt like when I read. It felt like, yeah, I'm here now, and also this year, of course, I've done like 11 fairs and markets, and I feel like it is another C word. There's um, there's coalescing. There's a coherency in the knowledge of tarot and reading and the energy that I've spoken about. I can feel that there's an acceleration within me.
Nice.
Yeah, and but it didn't happen until I read in person, and it's kind of doing it rather
Mhm.
Yeah.
than yeah. There's a lot of thinking goes on in a written tarot reading. But when you're just intuiting
Yeah.
live, it has an after effect.
So the readings you were doing before were typed out or
A lot of yes, written readings,
Oh, wow.
and some Zoom,
Mhm.
but mostly written.
I could see that being very different then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saying what's coming and when you're writing it, like when you would write or if you still do written readings, do you go back and read it and like change things and proofread things or is it just like kind of more of a stream of consciousness and
Mhm.
no, yes, it is a stream of consciousness in
Mhm.
the initial thing, and then I do go back and correct it if
Yeah,
there's grammatical spelling.
grammatical things, but like
Yeah,
you're not like rethinking the information that comes through.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
not at all. That'd be horrible.
Mm.
Yeah.
That'd
Yeah,
Yeah,
be
yeah,
then
yeah.
like
get in your head over and over again about something
Yeah.
like, no,
no,
just let
no,
it go.
no.
Yeah.
It's no. I give what I get, and so
Yeah.
I don't go back and manipulate. Oh, this will sound better if I
Yeah.
add this piece of information. No, I don't add my, as you know, you try and distance your opinion
Yep.
from what you're
Mhm.
actually reading because you're reading
Exactly.
what the cards are giving you. So, but in order to prepare myself for the live readings, um, I switched to doing audio recordings,
Mhm.
and I did many, like 65 or something before I turned up. The way that I constructed them was like I was at the table with the client, and I,
Mhm.
and I had all the questions ready, had laid out. I dealt them. Yeah. I pretended that, and I rehearsed, and
Yeah.
but they were real questions for real people.
Oh yeah.
But instead of sending out my written readings like I would have done in the past, I was sending out an audio recording with a photograph of the spread.
Nice. All right, friends, we have a few minutes left. If you got any last questions, throw it out there. So one more time for everybody listening now or later, where can people find you?
Yeah,
Okay.
where can they get a reading?
Well, I'm on octopusofdreams.com. That's my website. And if you can see at the bottom of my screen, at Octopus of Dreams, that's my, is it a handle on IG, Instagram? Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Yes.
That's what we'll call it, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. So, and also I'm also on Instagram as Jason Cosmos, at Jason Cosmos. But my professional is supposed to be at Octopus of Dreams, but people seem to contact me in both places.
Okay. And then you said you've been going to a lot of places. You got any
Yeah.
places that you're going to soon?
I have not got any booked. I was thinking about that before. Because,
are you thinking about things for next year? Like, are you interested?
Right. I'm definitely
got some in the works, maybe.
Yeah. So there's the people that I know that they've invited me to apply for their events next year. Event Psychics for You in the DMV region, and then there's Manifest Market, run by Chris Farley, and also Silver Moon Emporium. Melissa Harvey also runs, but they're on the equinoxes and solstices.
Okay. And all of that is in the Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia, Maryland area?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Well.
Wonderful. I have one last question to ask you. I've been looking at it all night, Jason. Am I mistaken? Because we do kind of have smaller cameras here. Do you have UFOs on your shirt?
I do.
Yeah.
Because I've been like, UFO, because that's
the cat.
The cat UFOs. There we go.
That's even better.
Okay, so you've seen the one where the cat's taking a selfie.
Yeah.
Okay, with the UFOs. Well, I designed my own because this is my cat, and unfortunately he passed away recently.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Sorry to hear it.
Yeah, and so I designed my own T-shirt, and he's more like in a command situation. He's got he's in command of the UFOs. So they're all my UFOs, and I made my own version of that T-shirt.
I love it. It's beautiful. I'm sorry about your kitty.
Yeah, me too.
He looks like he was a character.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Yeah. As they usually are, right?
Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I've had a great time, a great conversation. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Yeah. It was wonderful to be invited.
Yeah.
So for all you people out there who are listening at another time and another place, we thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you go check out Jason Cosmos over on his website or on Instagram. And if you would like to go get a reading, thank you for joining us, and we will see you all next time. And for everyone else who is still hanging out with us in Twitch and YouTube tonight, we're gonna go find someone on Twitch to go raid out to. Let me check out and see who we have on tonight.
Lou said Sheepy, Rhea Pandas, Mad Viking, Maxi Coon, Weird Paul, Random British Dude, Blue Light Oracle's on.
Okay,
there's a lot of people.
Brandon British Dude is doing Game Awards. Sheepy's got a hype train going on, doing some crafting tonight. Okay.
Blue Light Oracle is a tarot reader from New Zealand, Australia. I think that has to be who we go raid, right?
That might be a good one. Okay. That sounds good. I do want to say before we jump off tonight, we did have some. We had CMC resub for 7 months. Thank you so much, CMC. I appreciate it. We appreciate it. And Norsk, if Norsk is still hanging out, thank you for the resub for 12 months. Appreciate it. We also had Ranger Doomer who followed us today.
Ooh, thanks, Ranger Doomer,
for the show. So thank you, Ranger Doomer, for the follow. And so we appreciate all the support. Thank you, guys. We are going to be back next week. We're going to be back next week with a Christmas episode. We don't have a guest. We're probably going to do a giveaway and have maybe like some Christmassy stuff to do on the show. We're going to hang out, kind of enjoy the Yule season, and then and that'll be it until we're back
with the prediction show.
So you guys have a wonderful rest of the week. Are you going to be on? I guess you'll be on tomorrow for your Friday night, Jenny.
I should be. No, right. We'll see what I do, but I should be there. Yeah. All right. So you're going for Blue Light Oracle for the raid?
Yeah, we're gonna raid Blue Light Oracle.
Nice.
All right, guys. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out. It was great seeing you all. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Have a good night. Stay warm out there for all those people in those cold places, and we'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.